Each Sunday, we read part or all of a psalm. Some of those psalms are laments, where we hear the psalmist saying the sad and terrible things that are happening to them. Most of those end in places of hope. Some of them, like the psalm we said today, is a psalm just of praise. Psalm 100 talks about being glad in God, and it talks about entering the Lord's gates with thanksgiving, entering the courts with praise, and it's just all about praise. The Psalms were the hymn book of the people of Israel. They were their poetry, their prayers. Jesus quotes Psalm 22 from the cross. The Psalms were just part of their everyday spirituality. They have become the centerpiece of my devotional life, not really because of my own intent. When I was a senior in seminary, I took a class on monastic spirituality, and we took a week-long silent retreat to Gethsemane Abbey in rural Kentucky, where for hundreds of years, the monks have been chanting through all of the Psalms, all 150 of them, every 2 weeks. And worshiping with them all day, chanting the Psalms with them, it just stuck. So when I got home, I just kept going. And I'm 13 years now into reading a Psalm every day and just reading them over 1 to 150 and then start over at the beginning. And in doing that, when you spend that much time in the Psalms, you come to see that they really capture all of human experience. So they have joy and sorrow. They have anger and hatred and frustration and fear. They have hope. They have despair. If there is an experience we have had as a human being, it is somewhere in the Psalms. But not every Psalm has all of that, right? Each one sort of settles in a place. So today we had a psalm of praise. And I'm always conscious when we sing a psalm of praise in worship that not everyone showed up today in a praiseworthy place. Sometimes we come with heavy hearts. Sometimes we come with lots of worries. Or sometimes we're even just mad at God. My grandma, when she was in the hospital being treated for cancer, the pastor showed up and she said, "Good, you're here. I'm mad at God, now you can do the praying because I don't feel like it right now," right? And so when we show up in worship, we come with all of that. And then when we say a psalm of praise, probably some of you read it and go, "Yeah, that's where I'm at today." And others hear the words and go, "Yeah, I don't know. That's just not where I'm feeling it right now." So then I have to ask, why do we say them? We'll come back to that. We also have a gospel text today where we find Jesus talking to the 12 disciples, and he says to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few," and then sends them out into the world. And he sends them in pairs, and he sends them with directions. Don't take anything with you. You have everything you need. But also with power. Jesus gives them the power to cast out spirits and demons, gives them the power to heal every sickness, tells them to raise people from the dead. This is pretty extraordinary stuff. And then tells them, and by the way, while you do all that, you're going to get persecuted and people are going to hate you for doing all that, so it's not going to be easy. Now, whenever I hear this story and then try to connect it to us and say, okay, well, are we also sent out into the world? Of course we are. To cast out demons, heal people of every sickness, and raise people from the dead. Do you all feel like you have that power? Not so much. I don't want to discount it though, right? Because Jesus at other points says, if you have enough faith, you can do whatever, right? And so let's assume that we could do that if we tried, and maybe God works through us. But the thing is, when I hear this story, I'm reminded that the stories that we have about Jesus and the disciples are like the big ones, right? So the very beginning of the text we heard today, it says Jesus went throughout the cities healing all the illnesses and sicknesses. So think about this. Let's say Jesus came back today, and he went over to Roger's house and had dinner, and just a nice dinner, great conversation, and then he walked out and then cast a demon out of somebody. Which story is going to get told? The demon story, right? You're not going to have a whole book of, and then Jesus had a nice dinner, and then he went to another one and had a nice dinner. We get the big stories, right? We get the casting out of the demons and the healing that are miraculous out in the community. And then the same thing happens with the disciples, right? They're given all this power, and when you read the book of Acts, what do you hear? You hear all the amazing stories when they lived into that power that God had granted the church. So I'm mindful, though, that probably Jesus did have some meals where he didn't cast out any demons or heal any miraculous illnesses. And I'm sure that happened with the disciples too. Now, are those stories any less important? No. So imagine with me, two of the disciples, Jesus has just sent them. They go out into a town. They knock on the first door they come to. And then a woman answers the door, and she's not sick, and she doesn't have a demon to cast out. But her husband died 5 years earlier, and her son died 18 months earlier. It's too long gone for them to raise him right back to life. There's nothing they can do in terms of casting anything out to free her from a demon or free her from an illness. Can they free her from a heavy heart? Maybe. Maybe not permanently, right? But in that moment, if they enter into that space with the peace that they bring, and they enter into that space and spend time there, right? Something can happen. My wife and I last week watched Avatar: The Way of Water. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but then there was a previous Avatar movie, and there's, in both movies, the scenes that really struck me. And they're usually at a time where there's something chaotic happening. A husband and wife or a father, son are in a tense place in their relationship, and then the one will pause and look at the other one and say, I see you. And it's like a cultural thing that they say when they're kind of cutting through it all and just saying, no, I really do see you. And in that moment in the movie, there's always sort of a pause where you see the reconciliation and the healing start to happen. And that's what I imagine would happen with the disciples, right? Not only did they see people that had demons and sicknesses that need to be cast out, but if they sat down with that woman I'm trying to imagine, who maybe went unseen every day, and yet here these two people show up and they really see her, and they spend time with her, they eat with her, they just sit in her presence. That is a freeing thing, right? To be seen and known in your pain and not to have to carry that on your own. And then maybe they walked outside and cast out a demon. But maybe the next door they stopped at was an elderly man who long had since lost his family and is just alone. And they come in and bring their peace. And again, there's nothing to cast out in terms of a demon, and there's no healing that needs to happen. But can they see him and say, I see you? And help him to know that he doesn't journey on his own. As the disciples are doing this, right, Jesus tells them not to take anything with them. In our day, we would have training, right? We would say, before you go out, we're going to train you. We're going to teach you all the right things to say, all the other things to say. Jesus just says, don't take anything with you. You have everything you need. And when you get there, when you're getting persecuted and stuff is being demanded of you, don't worry about what you're going to say. God will fill that in for you. Just get out there and see, right? Go and be with these people. As we gather today as a church, I'm never quite sure how you all experience things, but there is a heaviness of heart amongst our congregation right now. Maybe not for all of you, but for quite a few. And I know this because I get to know some of the stories. And we have people that are grieving death. We have people who are facing death courageously. We have people who their own relationships are in a mess right now, and they're not sure how that's going to end. We have people who the loved ones they have relationships that are a mess right now, and they don't know where that's going to go. We have people who are trying to figure out who they are. And some of those are teenagers, and some of those are retired people that are still trying to figure out, what am I going to do when I grow up with my life? Right? All of this heaviness is with us. And sometimes those aren't easy stories to share, right? Because whoever's in front of you maybe doesn't feel like a safe person, but there is a heaviness that we carry. And is that heaviness outside of this place as well? Of course it is, right? And not all of it is a demon, and not all of it is a sickness. Some of it is just the heaviness of being a human being. So we, like those disciples, are sent out, right, into the world, but we're also sent into each other's lives to show up and say, I see you. I maybe don't know exactly what you're going through. I maybe can't understand all of it, but I see you. And do you have to say much of anything, really? No. You just show up and be. Being present is, like, that's the thing. Showing up is 90% or whatever they say, but that really is true. Like, showing up. That's what the disciples did. They walked out and just showed up, knocked on doors, sat down, and shared time together. So that is what we are called to do as the church, and part of our task as a congregation is to create a culture in which we do that for one another so that we can take out into the world that very same thing, to be together, to see one another. And it may not be casting out a demon or freeing somebody from an illness, but it certainly can free people from loneliness and free people from the heaviness that they carry. Is that heaviness going to come back for other reasons? And sometimes the same reason, and you don't always know when. But this is where we are called to walk together in faith. Now, Jesus, when he comes into the world, he does do all those miraculous things, but we call Jesus Emmanuel, which means God with us. We have a God that sees us just as we are, in all of our hurt, in all of our brokenness, in all of our struggle, and in our celebrations. So when we think about the cross, that's Jesus meeting us in all of that mess and saying, I see you, and I feel you, and I hear you, but I'm not going to leave you there. Right? We get to the new space of resurrection. Anytime we are freed from those things, it is an opportunity for us to see the new creation that God is building among us. Which brings me back to the psalm. With all of that heaviness that we might bring into this place, with all of the heaviness in the world around us, why do we sing a psalm of praise? Now, there's probably more than 3 reasons, but I came up with 3. The first one is we worship as a community. Right? And so if I'm not in a place of praise today, but you are, you sing for me. I have experienced that. When my mom was dying in the hospital, I sat in worship, and the words literally would not come out of my mouth. But her friend sat next to me, and the words did come for her. So part of what we do when we sing a psalm of praise, when we're not all in praiseworthy places, is we carry each other along in our faith and in our prayer. Second thing, I truly believe just hearing God's word out loud shapes us and changes us as people. When we were getting ready to move to my internship in seminary, it was chaos. We had 2 little kids moving for the second time in 2 years. We were having to pack up everything. It was hot. Like just everything was everything. And I had to preach in chapel, and the psalm I had to preach on was a praise psalm. And it was a challenge for someone who was still new to this preaching thing, like how do you preach about praise when your heart is not in a praiseworthy place? I don't remember how I got it done, but I do know that by the end of the week, I was in a different place, right? Having to hear and wrestle with that word moved me to a place. So when we gather, even if we're not all in a praiseworthy place, we speak those words, we sing those words, and I trust that it moves us and changes us and transforms us because that's what God's word does. And the third reason is that whenever we gather, whatever heaviness we bring, and when we look out into the world around us, it feels like the heaviness is everywhere and insurmountable sometimes, doesn't it? So sometimes we sing praise in defiant hope that the God who sees us is still going to do a new thing. Psalm 100, this is true of lots of the Psalms. We turn them into songs as well. And so we're going to sing some defiantly hopeful praise just now. If you know it, join along. If you don't, we'll sing it twice and you can join in the second time. I have entered his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I have entered his courts with praise. I will say this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. I will say this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Amen.